The Assembly Committee on Government Affairs will come to order. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Present.
Assemblywoman Black,
Here.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Here.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Here.
Assemblyman Ellison,
Present.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Present.
Assemblyman Matthews,
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
Here.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Here.
Chair Flores,
Present. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please let the record reflect all members are present. We have a quorum. Members, just for the sake of clarity for today's meeting, we'll be taking the agenda in the order it appears. We'll be doing the two bill presentations in the order they appear, followed by the work session document. For those of you who are waiting for your work session, for your bill to be on work session, I would assume that in about an hour to an hour and a half is when we'll get to that. As always, members, I want to remind you to please keep your microphone on mute unless you are speaking, and that you keep your camera on at all times. Unless, obviously, you have an emergency, just give us a quick heads up so we understand what's happening. For those of you who are following us virtually, good morning. Welcome to your Committee on Government Affairs. Thank you for joining us this morning. We will be doing public comment at the very end of the meeting, as we always do. And this morning, to kick us off, we have Assembly Bill 270. Assemblyman O'Neill, good morning, sir. Welcome. And whenever you're ready, we'll open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 270.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you all. I'd like to start out wishing, as I said, good morning to Chair Flores and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill, representing Assembly District 40, which covers Carson City and part of Southeast Washoe County. Today, I am here to introduce Assembly Bill 270 for your consideration. This proposed legislation seeks to enhance preservation efforts for the Nevada State Prison and the Stuart Indian School. With me today to assist on this important endeavor are Jim Wells, the chairman of the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society, and Stacy Montooth, the executive director of the Nevada Indian Commission. They're here to elaborate on the need and the opportunity this bill will provide for them, along with answer any questions you might have. I'm going to start by providing some background on the Nevada State Prison and the Stuart Indian School, then provide an overview of the bill as a whole. Both the Nevada State Prison and Stuart Indian School are located here in Carson City. Each facility was created around the time Nevada gained statehood, way back in the 1800s. Both places are unique and tell the rich history of the state in its early days. For 150 years, the Nevada State Prison, or NSP as many people call it, played an important role in the state of Nevada, protecting its citizens, influencing its architecture, providing employment, and amassing an impressive list of historical significant events. After NSP was decommissioned in 2012, the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society was formed as a nonprofit with the goal of preserving, interpreting, and developing this important site for the education of present and future generations. The society is still hard at work trying to get the prison museum up and running. Stuart Indian School, for those who may not know its history, for 90 years fulfilled a federal commitment to pursue Native American education in Nevada. The school opened in 1890 with 37 students from local Washoe, Paiute, and Shoshone tribes, and 3 teachers. Over the years, hundreds of of American Indian children attended the boarding school. The school closed in 1980 due to federal budget cuts and earthquake safety issues. The state of Nevada acquired the campus through several transactions during the 1990s. The facility is now used by state for classes, training, and several agencies have offices there, including the Nevada Indian Commission, which is located on the former superintendent's home. Today, the Stuart Indian School is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the Stuart Indian School Culture Center and Museum is in the former administration building. The school grounds are often used for powwows and other events to celebrate the rich history of our Nevada indigenous people. Now I would like to briefly walk you through the bill and then turn it over to the representatives with the Nevada State Prison and the Stuart Indian School to provide additional testimony and be available for questions that you might have. In sections 1, 2, and 5, the bill requires the proceeds from fees charged for the use of the building or grounds of the former Stuart Indian School be credited to the Nevada Indian Commission gift fund to carry out programs to preserve and maintain the building and grounds of the former Stuart Indian School. These are fees that are derived from events that the Stuart Indian School Museum Cultural Center sponsor and put on, not fees that are charged to the various agencies that are currently using some of the buildings as rent. That those fees, those rental fees, maintenance fees, go to the state buildings and grounds. So these are only fees that come from money derived, as I said, from the events that they actually put on and sponsor. Section 3 revises the allocation of money in the Silver State Industries Endowment Fund for the maintenance of the modern structures, buildings, and other property of the prison and administrative costs, and eliminate the prohibition on spending or transferring the reserve principal of the fund. Section 4 creates an exemption in current law that prohibits the sale of alcohol within 1/2 mile of any Department of Corrections facility that houses 125 or more inmates. This provision will allow the sale or consumption of beer and wine at the Nevada State Prison during special events under very controlled delivery methods. Section 6 will allow for the transfer of the reserved principal of the endowment fund of the historic preservation of the Nevada State Prison. Section 7, the bill ensures that any funding generated by a nonprofit corporation contracted to operate the prison as a museum belongs solely to the corporation. And finally, sections 8 and 9 eliminate the trust fund for further study and development of the Nevada State Prison and requires any funding remaining in the fund on July 1st of 2021 to be deposited in the Fund for Historic Preservation of the Nevada State Prison. Now I would like to ask both Mr. Wells of the Nevada State Prison Preservation and then Ms. Montooth of the Nevada Indian Commission representatives to provide additional testimony, if you may allow, Chair.
Please, Assemblyman.
Mr. Wells, would you like to go first, I think?
Morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jim Wells. I serve as the president of the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was created when the Nevada State Prison was decommissioned in 2012 to educate the public on the historical, political, social, and architectural significance of the NSP, not just as a prison, but as a landmark that predates statehood. Since the prison was closed through the work of the NSPPS, The Nevada State Prison was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2015, and we received a special use permit and change of occupancy designation in January of this year, which will allow us to hold public tours and events at the Nevada State Prison. So over the last few years, the NSPPS has been preparing the prison to open to the public, doing maintenance, repairs, disability access improvements. Most of that has been done through the solicitation of donations and seeking out grants. To date, we have received or raised about $90,000 through memberships and donations. We've collected about $50,000 from events and special uses of NSP, and we've also received grants totaling approximately $50,000. And we have spent over $60,000 on maintenance, repairs, and improvement, and over $15,000 on a study that would tell us how that would give us an idea of what uses the different sections of the prison could be used for. There are also plans to spend another $25,000 this month on roof repairs and removing the tile floor in the old visitor center and abating asbestos. The old visitor center eventually will become the exhibit hall for the Nevada State Prison. There are two sections of NSP. There's a historical area that's part of the National Historical Register piece. That's the older structures that they date back to about 1925. And then there's a series of modern structures that were built in the 1970s. Most of the work that the NSPPS has done and does relates to the historical structures. In 2015, Assembly Bill 377 created these three trust funds. One was for the modern sections, that's called the Silver State Industries Endowment Fund. One for the historic sections, the Endowment Fund for the Historic Preservation of NSP, and a third for the historics, for the study and development of the historic structures at NSP. The first two of those trust funds are at the Department of Corrections. The third one is at the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. And part of that is because the original thoughts in 2015 were that the state land registrar would assign the historic portions to one state agency to operate as a museum, and then the more modern structures would stay with the Department of Corrections as for potential commercial and correctional uses. In 2015, the license plate factory and the death chamber were still active, so there were limitations on restrictions on what could be done with the at the site. Those activities have now been moved to different NDOC facilities, with only a maintenance facility remaining active on the NSP grounds. And that maintenance facility does not interfere with the ability to offer tours and hold events. At this time, there's not really any planned permanent commercial uses of the more modern facilities, but NSP remains under the DOC control and will as long as that maintenance facility is open. The two trust funds that were created at NDOC by AB 377 have reserve principal requirements of $100,000 each before any money can be used for maintenance or preservation of the facilities. The Silver State Endowment Fund, Silver State Industries Endowment Fund has no money in it. The Endowment Fund for the Historic Preservation of NSP has a little over $12,000 in it. And then the trust fund that's at the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs has no money in it at this time. These facilities continue to need desperate maintenance and repairs. One of the things that we did earlier this month was the roof was leaking between the C and B blocks, and that needed an emergency repair. We did some of that through a grant that we received, and the rest of it we used funds that we had raised previously. But this bill would allow us to have access to the money to make these repairs more easily. The prohibition of alcohol, we've had significant interest in holding events at NSP. The Chamber of Commerce, the local Chamber of Commerce has requested events, weddings. We've had other types of requests, and these requests are really looking to hold, to serve beer and wine at their events. And these types of events have the potential to raise significant funds for the maintenance and operations of NSP. There's no intent to sell alcohol during the normal open tours, just at the special events. And also there won't be any alcohol stored at the facility ever. the maintenance requirements and the maintenance needs of this facility are great. And I think that this bill goes a long way towards giving us the ability to use the funds. With the change of the designation, the change of occupancy and the special use permit from the State Public Works Board, it's anticipated that we will start offering tours as soon as May. That's the plan right now. And then that money will go into the trust fund, the endowment fund for the historical preservation of the NSP. And then that money then can be used by the NSPPS and the Department of Corrections to make the improvements and continue to improve the facility for the public. And so we are very appreciative of Assemblyman O'Neill and the other co-sponsors for bringing this bill forward, and they're certainly appreciative of the chair and the committee for hearing this bill this morning. And we are excited about the prospects of what this bill will do for us to open up these funds to continue to improve the site. And we certainly would encourage and would be pleased to meet any of the Assembly Committee members out at the facility and give you an idea of what it is that we have been doing and what the plans are going forward. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
And thank you for joining us this morning. With that, we'll open it up for questions, members, and
Chair?
going through the chat now, please.
If I might, Ms. Montooth has to be at another meeting by 10 o'clock, so I'd like to have her give her presentation.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Would that be acceptable to you?
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Montooth?
For the record, my name is Stacy Montooth. I am a citizen of the Walker River Paiute Nation and the Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. I'd like to thank Chair Flores and the rest of your committee for carving out time to hear from me today. I'd also like to express my appreciation to Assemblyman O'Neill for driving AB 270. I will be brief. The Assemblyman did an excellent job explaining the function of the Nevada Indian Commission, as well as the brief history of the Stuart Indian School. I am here primarily to answer any questions that you have about the impact of AB 270 and the function of the Stuart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum. I do want to add that if successful, AB 270 would help the overall mission of the Nevada Indian Commission, which is to enhance the lives of the 70,000 self-identified Native Americans who call Nevada home. That includes our 27 tribal nations, bands, and colonies. With AB 270's success, my staff of 5 would be able to continue our efforts to preserve and restore the campus, the historic campus, but also enhance this platform that allows us to tell the true, accurate, and firsthand accounts of the 90-year history of not just the Stuart Indian boarding school, but all boarding schools. There's not a Paiute, Shoshone, or Washoe person in this area who doesn't have a direct connection to the boarding school. This bill would enable a revenue stream to be added to our efforts, not just physically and literally to preserve the buildings and grounds at this amazing campus and our 69 buildings, but it would allow us to empower and to continue to support and enrich the unique ancient culture of the first citizens of this land. I stand for questions. Thank you.
Sounds good. And thank you for joining us this morning. And with that, members, we'll go to questions. Any questions? I'll start off with Vice Chair Torres.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't really have a question. Yeah, I just want to thank the presenters and specifically the bill sponsor for meeting with me and talking to me quite extensively this morning about the history, about the Stuart Indian School and the Nevada State Prison. I appreciate the conversation. I look forward to continuing to preserve these historic sites here in Nevada.
Great. And then we'll go next to Assemblywoman Thomas.
Good morning, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to make a comment. Thank you, Assemblyman O'Neill. I appreciate the presentation, and I just want to say that I support, and I think this is something that's culturally good for our community, the state of Nevada, and I look forward to visiting these entities. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Members, any additional questions or comments? I don't believe we have any. Assemblyman O'Neill, I think you're the first presenter we've ever had in this committee this session where there were 0 questions. So you knocked it out of the park. Great job.
Thank you, Chair. It almost makes me nervous.
You should be. I'm not sure what it means, but 0 questions. I don't know that we've done that before, so it's good for you.
And I have you again tomorrow. I just hope I do as well tomorrow also. That's what makes me nervous.
Yeah, I think they're saving all the questions for the verbal beatdown for tomorrow.
Thank you. So much for sleeping tonight.
With that, we'll go ahead and move to those wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 270. And I am verifying that we don't have anybody logged in virtually who was hoping to speak in support of Assembly Bill 270 virtually. It does not appear that that is the case. So we will go to the phone line to those wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 270. Broadcast, if we could go to the phone lines to those wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 270.
Chair, apologize, just give us one moment.
No worries.
Chair, we are having a few technical difficulties. If you could hold for just another moment.
No worries. We'll do a 1-minute recess while our team can take care of everything they need to on the back end. 1-minute recess.
Check, check. Can you hear me? Check, check. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Stark.
Check, check.
Stark, can you hear us?
I can hear you. We're all good.
Okay. Chair,
We can.
whenever you're ready. Actually, hold on just a moment. Sorry. Okay. Chair, I believe everything is working as it should be now.
Perfect. Thank you.
To testify in support.
I'm sorry. Let me just reopen the hearing. The Assembly Committee on Government Affairs will come back to order. And we are back on the record. And we are inviting those wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 270. Broadcast, please.
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 270, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 728. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Marla McDade Williams, MARLA-MC, capital DADE-WILLIAMS, with Strategies 360 and speaking today on behalf of the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. The Reno Sparks Indian Colony supports AB 270, in particular the provisions related to the Nevada Indian Commission. As you may recall, a similar bill was heard in 2019, and while it was supported by the legislature, it ran out of time to gain passage at the end of session. Thank you, and we hope you're able to support this measure.
And thank you. Next caller wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 270.
Caller with the last three digits of 394. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello? Yes, my name is Glenn Wharton. I am the former president of the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society, and I'm the former director of the Department of Corrections. I just wanted to speak today in support of AB 270. And, you know, as you've gone through the technical aspects of the bill, I'd like to talk about the importance of the Nevada State Prison just briefly. The history of the Nevada State Prison is basically embedded in the culture and economy of this state, and also in the history of the legislature, the executive branch, and also the judiciary. If you come through the main gate of the Nevada State Prison, you are actually walking on the location of the political origins of the state of Nevada at the Warm Springs Hotel. And I understand that the history of a prison is maybe a little unusual. It can be troubling. It's certainly unique. It's amusing, but it's always interesting. The Nevada State Prison Preservation Society we have raised and spent a lot of our own money to make this institution available to the community. We've provided accessible restrooms, handicap ramp. We've done roof repairs, sewer repairs, constant weed abatement. And as we are speaking, there are men out here working on asbestos abatement so that we can have an area for a museum. As Jim Wells indicated, we also have obtained a change of use permit. I would like to invite you, if you have not seen the Nevada State Prison, to contact us, and we are available on any day, at any hour that you might be interested in coming out, just as many, many members of our community have expressed an interest in visiting us. Thank you very much.
And thank you. And we'll go to the next caller wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 270.
Caller with the last three digits of 247. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Will Adler, Willadler. I'm with Silver State Government Relations representing the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. Hello, and thank you very much for hearing this bill today. We would like to, reach out to someone PK O'Neill and thank him for bringing forward this measure this year, because Stuart Indian School is something that should be preserved and is a big piece of the heritage for all Native people in the state of Nevada. So any measures brought forward to preserve it and its history is welcome and should be funded and supported as best we can. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
And thank you, sir, for joining us this morning. We'll continue with support on Assembly Bill 270. Next caller, please.
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll invite those wishing to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 270.
To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 270, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll invite those wishing to speak in the neutral position for Assembly Bill 270.
To speak in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 270, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 956, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Flores, and committee members. I am Charlie Donahue, D-O-N-O-H-U-E, and I serve as the Administrator of the Division of State Lands. The State Land Office is neutral on Assembly Bill 270. However, we have some questions related to the language policy proposed for the Stuart property. As background, currently the entire Stuart property, which is approximately 110 acres, is assigned to the Department of Administration's Buildings and Grounds Division. B&G is responsible for the daily management of the property and the associated maintenance needs of the infrastructure and grounds. In addition to the Nevada Indian Commission and Cultural Center and Museum, the property is occupied by a number of state agencies, including the State Fire Marshal, Department of Public Safety, Post, and Corrections. Section 5 of the bill requires me as the State Land Registrar to direct revenue generated from the use of buildings and grounds at the Stuart property to the Nevada Indian Commission's gift fund to carry out programs to preserve and maintain the buildings and grounds of the former Stuart Indian School. However, the bill does not define what a fee is. NDSL believes what qualifies as a fee in this case needs to be clearer. Is it an application fee to use state land, or a fee for the admittance to the cultural center on the property, or an authorization for a utility easement that crosses a small portion of the property, or the rent for the occupancy of a building? The legislation is also silent on activities that were discussed during the development of the master plan, including day use events that are authorized by the managing agency, including activities by the old football field, such as the Father's Day powwow or artisan events on the grounds of the facility. Another question that NDSL has is the legislation is silent on whether Section 1 applies to the entire property, including the buildings where state agencies are housed, or if it is limited to a specific portion of the property. This is important as this is a large property with multiple uses. It would be helpful to clarify the interested area related to the legislation. Currently, there are limited third-party uses on the property, and NDSL has one active utility easement issued to Carson City that may be affected by this legislation. Mr. Chairman, I recognize Assemblyman O'Neill's opening comments regarding events that are sponsored by the Nevada Indian Commission, that these are the focus of this legislation. Authorizations for these events are not authorized by NRS 322, but are allowed by B&G statutes, very similar to the agreement that's in place between Corrections and the Preservation Society for the Nevada State Prison. Mr. Chairman, those are my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you or other members might have.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning and the insight you've provided. Members, any questions? I am looking through my chat now. I don't believe we have any for you.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add one more comment?
Please do.
Yes, I neglected to say I'd be more than happy to work with the sponsor of the bill, Assemblyman O'Neill, and Department of Administration to ensure that the focus of this legislation is captured correctly, and that the revenue the Nevada Indian Commission is looking to secure for their events on the grounds and the facilities of the Stuart property is clearly called out. Thank you.
And thank you. And all I saw was a request from the members that if you could please provide the entire committee. You could just send it to our committee manager, Ms. Judy Bishop, and she can, any information that you'd like to share with her, we'll make sure all the members get it. So with that,
Will do.
Thank you, sir. We'll continue with those wishing to testify in the neutral position for Assembly Bill 270. Next caller, please.
Chair, there are no more callers in the neutral position at this time.
Perfect. Assemblyman O'Neill, any closing remarks you may have?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm going to allow Ms. Montooth to speak if she has anything, since she's got a meeting at 10 o'clock to get to, then Mr. Wells, and then I'll come up last. Please, Ms. Montooth.
Again, I want to thank the committee for listening to the perspective of the Nevada Indian Commission. I also want to thank my colleague from Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Charlie Donahue, for not only addressing his concerns to this body, but the offer to work through those hurdles that he sees. I too want to personally extend an invitation to all of you, to your families, to come and visit our historic campus. It is spectacular as the weather warms up. It is one of the most beautiful places to experience, not just in the capital of Nevada, but in our entire state. Thank you again for your time today.
Mr. Chairman, again, for the record, this is Jim Wells with the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society. I too would like to thank the committee for hearing this bill this morning. And certainly if I can offer any assistance to Ms. Montooth and Mr. Donahue on language, as we have some similar language that we have in the agreement with the Department of Corrections, I would be more than happy to help. So again, thank you for your listening to us this morning, and we hope that you will support this bill. Thank you.
And Chair, Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill, 8040. If I can just conclude, I want to thank Ms. Montooth and Mr. Wells for their time and assistance in this presentation and coming forward, actually initially asking me to sponsor this bill. It's really a privilege. Both locations have tremendous impact to Carson City directly, but to the state as a whole in our history that we should not lose and fight to protect and keep. There is a letter of support from the Carson City supervisors, should be up on Nellis by now. I anticipate also a few other letters coming from previous members of the Stuart Indian School in support will be up shortly. I am a little disappointed. I got a phone call at 8:45 from Buildings and Grounds questioning on those fees issues and tried to bring it in. There is no intent to take money from the state or deprive the state from their natural work, important work that they do there at the campus. I will get with Mr. Donahue. I appreciate Mr. Wells offering to help also on the language immediately so we can get that clarified. Probably, unfortunately, an amendment will be coming forth shortly to you. So we will address that. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you, Chair, for allowing us to present today. And I look forward to working with you all and getting this legislation passed on and signed, improving our state as a whole. Everybody have a great day. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Assemblyman. We appreciate the presentation and the work you're doing. And I'm confident we'll get to a good place. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Assembly Bill 270. Members, be sure to reach out to Assemblyman O'Neill should you have any follow-up questions. And as soon as we get that information to our committee manager, we'll be sure to share that. So with that, we'll close out the hearing on Assembly Bill 270, and we'll now open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 307. Assemblywoman Martinez, good morning, welcome, and whenever you're ready.
Good morning, thank you, Chair, and good morning, Chairman Flores and members of the hardest working committee on government affairs. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Susie Martinez, and I represent Assembly District 12. I'm here to present Assembly Bill 307 for your consideration. So, Assembly Bill 307 seeks to improve the lives of Nevada's workers by providing information on how to access the tools and resources needed to advance their career and future. The Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation, which would be DETR, is probably best known for operating the state's unemployment insurance system, but the agency has so much more to offer Nevada workers besides that. This is especially true for those who have never been dislocated from a job and are trying to re-enter the workforce or are underemployed and wishing to move up in the career ladder. Assembly Bill 307 seeks to address by requiring each DETR division that carries out duty concerning job training or employment programs to prepare a notice setting forth a description of the services provided by the division or unit. The notice will be made available to all private employers in the state and requires employers to post a notice in a conspicuous location, such as a break room, containing a list of job training and employment programs available for their workers. This would include programs such as the Career Enhancement Program and Nevada Job Connect. The Career Enhancement Program, for example, is an employer-funded training and re-employment program that provides job seekers with training and resources to improve their potential learning. In fact, this program may also assist job seekers with paying job-related expenses such as certifications, work permits, uniforms, and even small tools in order to facilitate their entry or re-entry into the workforce. This is just one of the critical and valuable programs that already exist, but I suspect most people might not be aware of their existence. I wasn't aware of myself. So this would help the workers sitting in the break room who's anticipating that maybe just dislocated or displaced for circumstances out of their control. It could help the workers' family, friends, or colleagues who may have been dislocated or displaced and are seeking to improve their job skills. Regardless, these programs can't help people if people don't know that they exist. I'm proposing a consensual amendment which will be available on Nellis to make technical changes. So when I was submitting my bill, unfortunately, I did not convey to LCB exactly what I needed. So that's why we had to have these amendments. So the first one will be to clarify that DETR would prepare the notice concerning job training and employment programs and provide that information to the Labor Board. Then the Labor Board Commissioner is responsible for requiring employers to post and maintain each notice in a conspicuous location at the place of employment, and to clarify that the Labor Commissioner would make the notice available to all employers in the private employment. And then it would also provide the flexibility for DETR at their discretion when preparing these notices. If there are any additional similar programs beyond the Career Enhancement Program and Job Connect services. So that concludes my remarks, and I would like the committee to allow me to any questions or concerns, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And with that, we'll start off with Assemblywoman Duran.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Assemblywoman Martinez. This is actually didn't realize that they did have a program for like this to get people out to the workforce. Is this program for everybody? And how much money does it have? And is there limitations of how much training you can get?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Duran. The fund is funded by the unemployment insurance tax. 0.5% of the tax goes into this fund. So they currently have 4.3 million in the fund, and it keeps getting funds keep getting put on. So it never gets depleted. Anybody can participate in it in Nevada, as long as you could be a substitute teacher, in the summertime, you're no longer going to be working for the school district. So let's say you want to do something else, that's when you can tap into this program, and they can assist you with schooling, tools for work, whatever you need. That's what they are for. And the reason for this bill is because when I was when I became a legislator, obviously we become more informed on things, programs. That's when I became aware of this, and I myself did not know about it. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know about it. Just imagine how many people do not know about it. And I think that they need to know, especially now that we're going through the pandemic. This would be an amazing tool for many people to get back on their feet that just need a little bit of help to get their careers going.
Follow-up, Chair?
Follow-up, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblywoman Martinez. Also, is there a waiting list, or is there a process that you have to do? So can you just walk through how I would be interested if I was looking to change my career? What process or procedures do I have to do to inquire about different training, if you know?
So basically, you just need to show up. You just need to ask them what they have available. You can go to school. They can help you with your tools. You will speak with them, and they can assist you in which direction to guide you in.
And this is a Job Connect, Dieter, or is there a specific location? Online?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Assemblywoman Martinez. This is, thank you for the presentation. Anything that can help, especially relevant to the pandemic, to help Nevada citizens gain an upper leg on employment is fantastic. My question actually is around, will this require Dieter or Labor Commissioner to require additional employees? In other words, how would this affect the state?
No, it has no fiscal note. So they already have these duties already. What we're trying to make them do is we're trying to have these programs have Nevada be more aware of these. So that's how we want them to post a notice in break rooms, cafeterias, the break rooms, places where employees and people can see that this is available. For instance, like when I'm in my break room at work, I'll sometimes read the board and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Oh my gosh, I have a friend who is currently unemployed. You know what, friend? There's this information, and I'll take it for them and hand it to them so that they can take advantage of this. This is what we want. We want to get the word out, people to take advantage, and for Nevadans to get back to work.
Follow-up, Chair, please.
Well, 1 second. Members, am I the only one having a difficult time hearing Assemblywoman Martinez?
No, sir.
I am.
Assemblywoman Martinez, I think we're having some issues with your sound. If we could, I don't think anything you just indicated previously, just your last response, I don't think our team was able to hear that. If we could have you state that one more time, see if our sound's better now.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
So yeah, this has no fiscal note. Basically, the Dieter, they already do this, but we wanted them to, get the word out, so to speak, on these programs so that people can take advantage of it. Like I said earlier, what we want them to post it in break rooms so that, like when I'm at work and I can be in the cafeteria and I look on there and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have a friend that could take advantage of this program. Let me get the information and get it out to them. What we want is for people to be able to use this. So once Peter has that, and then we send it to the Labor Commission, and they're the ones who will post it. So we have no fiscal note.
And Assemblywoman Thomas, I think what's happening is we're getting feedback from your side, and I think that's why we're having a difficult time hearing Assemblywoman Martinez. Assemblywoman Thomas, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully I'm coming in okay.
You are.
All right, thank you. Just to clarify, Dieter already posts, but you actually would have to go into the office to see what they have as far as jobs that are available. And you're saying that you would like that to be posted in an employer's break rooms so that everyone in the state that has a job or has a friend that has a job can actually see what's available?
Yes. So for instance, right now, I've never filed for unemployment. They have a little Dropbox where you can find some of this information. Not everybody goes to that. You know, I mean, I've been at my job for over 30 years, so I never had to file unemployment. It would never dawn on me to go and look through there. So we want it to be posted where they have the information, for instance, minimum wage, some of the labor laws. We want that so that it can be elevated so that people can know about this program.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Next, we'll go to Assemblyman Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, in rural Nevada, the unemployment office, you know, they send these young people or people that are trying to change careers to Job Connect, which is pretty active in our community. The self-employment programs that hires people and that puts them out on different projects, they also work with Job Connect. So Job Connect is existing big times in rural Nevadas. I just figured it'd be large in your areas, but what they should do is the unemployment division is people go in either to apply for unemployment or say they want to change their career or whatever. It should be on when you go and log in on the computer, is to you know, check with Job Connect or these programs, because they get these people and they help get them tools, and then not only that, but they help them move forward to go to employment. So anyway, I was kind of surprised, and I read the bill and I thought, God, it's in our part of the state, they're already doing this.
Well, I was not aware of this program in particular, like I said, and I've asked around, I've asked people. So I wanted that. The reason for the bill is because we want to have people be aware, and we want to get the word out that there are these programs and that these people can use it to gain employment. And I especially believe that during this pandemic, I think we need more help than ever. And these programs are there, and they're there to be used, and that's what we want people to know.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Next, we'll go to Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Assemblywoman Martinez, for bringing this bill forward. It's always great to empower our citizens to seek out and find really great employment opportunities. And I commend your efforts there. As you stated, information is really power. And so my question is, have you considered discussing the sharing of this information as employees are separated from employment opportunities, right? So and you talked a little bit about the bulletin board. In my experience, a lot of folks don't really read the bulletin board when you are employed. Only when then you need additional help do you actually go in that direction. And so as a person is separating employment opportunities, really would be a time that they may consider what other options. So I'm just curious to know if you've considered or talked about making this information necessary from employers as a person is separated from their employment. And then perhaps targeting private employment agencies to post this information so folks know that they have access to it through a one-stop center.
Well, we're always open up for suggestions. I know that it would be a little more difficult because it depends also on the employer. For instance, if you're union, if you're not union, I know sometimes if you're union, we grieve things. Sometimes you get your job back. So I think it would be a little bit more difficult. But we are always open for conversation, and I'm more than willing to work with you. We can have a further conversation in regards to this.
Thanks, Assemblywoman. I think it was a great bill. I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Members, any additional questions? I don't believe we have any, but at this time, feel free to unmute yourself. Seeing none, at this time, we'll go to those wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 307. Broadcast, please.
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 307, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll invite those wishing to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 307.
To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 307, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll invite those wishing to testify in the neutral position for Assembly Bill 307.
To testify in neutral on Assembly Bill 307, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Martinez, any closing remarks you may have?
Thank you, Chair Flores, and the hardest working committee, Government Affairs. I appreciate your time and your patience. Also remember, you know, we as legislators have big megaphones. Now that you guys are aware of this program, please reach out to your community, let people know that these programs are available for them to get back on their feet. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate your support for the bill. Thank you.
And thank you, Assemblywoman. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Assembly Bill 307. Next, we're going to move on to our work session document. For those of you who are following along, if you could please notify the respective legislator and or stakeholder that we're moving on to the work session. We're going to take the work session document in the order it appears on the agenda, starting with Assembly Bill 2. And with that, we'll start with Assembly Bill 2. Mr. McDonald, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is Jared McDonald of the Research Division. Assembly Bill 2 revises provisions relating to appointments to public bodies. This bill was sponsored by this committee on behalf of NACO and heard on February 15th. The bill removes the prohibition against the governor appointing a person to more than one board, commission, or similar body at the same time. The bill also makes conforming changes related to exceptions to the prohibition for members of the Sagebrush Ecosystem Council and the Land Use Planning Advisory Council. And we did receive one amendment, and that begins on the next page of your work session packet. This amendment came from NACO, Vince Guthrow. The amendment proposes to limit the number of allowed simultaneous gubernatorial appointments to 3 boards and deletes the conforming changes related to the Sagebrush Ecosystem Council and the State Land Use Planning Advisory Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Members, as you recall during the presentation of Assembly Bill 2, one of the concerns that was shared by many of the members was that we did not want to see the makeup of a particular board being replicated throughout different boards because we kept appointing the same people. And that was one concern on one side. And on the other hand, we had the concern, which was the genesis of the bill, which is what do we do when we have a talented individual that has the resume, but is already appointed to one board and we can't utilize that talent in a different board? So I think the consensus was to try to narrow it down, and that's how they came up with that number 3. But I do believe we have somebody here in case any questions would like to be raised further. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 2.
So moved. Tracy Brown May, Assemblywoman.
Assemblywoman Brown May has made the motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 2. Do I have a second?
Second, Dickman.
Second.
Assemblywoman Dickman has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, if you could please if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Yes.
Assemblyman Ellison,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Yes.
Assemblyman Matthews,
Yes.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes. Please let the record reflect all are in support. You have unanimous support of the bill. Motion carries. And if I could please have Assemblyman Matthews do the floor statement.
Happy to, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Matthews. Assemblyman Matthews will do the floor statement for Assembly Bill 2. Next on the work session document is Assembly Bill 21. Mr. McDonald, please.
Thank you, Chair. Jared McDonald again. Assembly Bill 21 revises provisions governing the confidentiality of personal information of certain persons. Sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Division of Child and Family Services, also known as DCFS, and heard on February 18th. This bill authorizes a person for whom a fictitious address has been issued by the Division of Child and Family Services to request a county assessor or county recorder to maintain the personal information of the person contained in their records in a confidential manner without having to obtain a court order. The bill also prohibits the Secretary of State, a county, or a city clerk from making personal information available. And finally, the bill authorizes any person for whom a fictitious address has been issued by DCFS to also request that the DMV display an alternate address on the person's driver's license, commercial driver's license, or identification card. We did receive an amendment proposal on this bill from DCFS, and you can take a look at the language they sent in on the next page. This amendment would require a person for whom a fictitious address has been issued to provide, in addition to a sworn affidavit, a confirmation letter and copy of the enrollment card issued by DCFS verifying a person has been issued a fictitious address. The amendment also provides that DCFS may verify a fictitious address when requested by a county recorder or assessor. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Mr. McDonald. And members, as you recall, during this hearing, we went through a series of questions. There had been some opposition from our recorders/assessors, only in that they were concerned about ensuring that they could recognize when this was a legitimate request rather than somebody trying to somehow circumvent the process. I know that they worked very diligently behind the scenes to try to come up with a compromise to where DCFS, the recorders and assessors were all on the same page. So I wanted to thank them for their work in coming up with this agreement, with this amendment. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 21.
So moved. Vice Chair Torres.
Madam Vice Chair Torres has made the motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 21. Do I have a second?
Second, Anderson.
Assemblywoman Anderson has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion?
Yes, sir, I've got one.
Assemblyman Anderson, please.
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple concerns. I think this is a good bill, but I'm going to reserve my rights. I'm going to vote yes, but I'm going to reserve my rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Ellison. Members, any additional discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Yes.
Assemblyman Ellison,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Yes.
Assemblyman Matthews,
Yes.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes. To reflect, we have unanimous support, motion carries. And if I could ask Assemblywoman Brown May to do the floor statement for Assembly Bill 21. And I'm just going to confirm, Assemblywoman Brown May, are you comfortable doing that? I see her nodding her head. Assemblywoman Brown May will do the floor assignment for Assembly Bill 21. Next on the work session document is Assembly Bill 111. Mr. McDonald, please.
Assembly Bill 111 revises provisions related to the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. This was sponsored by Assemblyman Frierson and others and heard in this committee on March 12th. You may recall that the bill in its original form transfers the duties to appoint and the authority to approve outside employment or duties are removed. The Executive Director of Post removes that from the commission and was going to give it to the governor. However, you may recall that Assemblyman Frierson proposed an amendment at the hearing that essentially replaces the introduced version of the bill. That amendment is on the next page, and you may recall that it proposes to increase the membership of the commission to 11 members and requires the majority leader of the Senate and Speaker of the Assembly to each appoint one member who is not a peace officer and who has demonstrated experience in one or more of the following areas: implicit and explicit bias, cultural competency, mental health as it relates to policing and law enforcement, and experience working with certain vulnerable populations. The amendment also requires the governor, the majority leader of the Senate, and the Speaker of the Assembly to consider the racial, gender, and ethnic diversity of the commission when making appointments. And finally, the amendment will propose to add Assemblyman Roberts as a co-sponsor to the bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 111.
Motion to amend and do pass, Considine.
Assemblywoman Considine has made the motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 111. Do I have a second?
Second, Vice Chair Torres.
Vice Chair Torres has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Yes.
Assemblyman Ellison,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Yes.
Assemblyman Matthews,
Yes.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes, please let the record reflect all members are in support. We have unanimous support. Motion carries. And if I could please ask for Assemblywoman Considine to do the floor statement.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblywoman Considine will do the floor statement for Assembly Bill 111. Next on the work session. Oh, excuse me. Assemblywoman Considine will do the floor statement. And next on the work session document is Assembly Bill 153. Mr. McDonald, please.
Assembly Bill 153 revises provisions governing performance contracts. This was sponsored by Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod and Senator Brooks and heard in this committee on March 2nd. The bill clarifies that savings realized throughout the term of a performance contract may be used to make any payments required under the performance contract, including the payment of finance charges. The bill also declares that it is the policy of the state to encourage using agencies to implement any operating cost-saving measures to reduce costs related to energy, water, the disposal of waste, or related labor costs. The state also encourages using agencies to continually review the possible use of a performance contract to implement a cost-saving measure. We did have an amendment submitted by Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. This amendment proposes to amend the bill to authorize a state agency that has entered into a performance contract to submit a request to the budget division of the governor's finance office as part of the agency's budget process for each biennium to use any operating costs generated from the performance contract to make any payments toward the performance contract or reinvest the savings into other operating cost-saving measures. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend and do pass
So moved, Dixman.
Assemblywoman Dickman has made the motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 153. Do I have a second?
Second, Matthews.
Assemblyman Matthews has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Yes.
Assemblyman Ellison,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Yes.
Assemblyman Matthews,
Yes.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes. Let the record reflect all members are in support. It is unanimous. Motion carries. And if I could ask Assemblywoman Dickman to please do the floor statement.
Honored. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblywoman Dickman will do the floor statement for Assembly Bill 153. And last on the work session document is Assembly Bill 184. Mr. McDonald, please.
Thank you, Chair. Assembly Bill 184 creates the Office of Small Business Advocacy within the Office of Lieutenant Governor. This was sponsored by Speaker Frierson and Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson and heard in this committee on March 15th. The bill creates the Office of Small Business Advocacy within the Office of the Lieutenant Governor to provide certain information to small businesses and to coordinate with certain state agencies and local governments to facilitate interactions between such entities and small businesses. In addition to other provisions, the bill requires the Office of Small Business Advocacy to establish and maintain an education course for small businesses. And finally, among other provisions of the bill, the communications, files, and records of the office are confidential and are not public records. We did have an amendment submitted by the bill sponsor. You can take a look at that on the next page. The amendment authorizes the office to establish and maintain an education course for small businesses. So that's kind of changing it from required to authorize. Next, the amendment creates the account for small business advocacy within the State General Fund and requires that money in the account only be used to carry out the duties of the office. The amendment also authorizes the Lieutenant Governor to employ any necessary personnel within the limits of money available other than from the State General Fund. And the amendment also introduces an expiration date on this legislation that will be June 30th, 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 184.
So moved by Chair Torres.
Vice Chair Torres has made the motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 184. Do we have a second?
Second, Duran.
Assemblywoman Duran has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion?
I've got one. If I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly with that new language of the floor or of the expiration date. Makes sense. Just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly, that with this date now, if there's no activity, the account is no longer in place? Or does this mean that if there is activity, that doesn't matter at all, this account is no longer in place? I think I'm asking a freshman question on this with the expiration date that's based upon that amendment of it ending by a certain date. So I'm just
Thank you,
asking
Assemblywoman.
for what that means.
We have both Ms. Lopez and our Lieutenant Governor. I don't know who would like to take that.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Kate Marsh, for the record. Thank you, Chairman Flores, for allowing me to speak during your work session. Through you, Chairman Flores, to Assemblywoman Anderson. It's my understanding that the money would only be used for the small business advocate. If there was money left over at the end of the 2 years, it's my understanding that we would attempt to go back to the legislature to say this is a proof of concept opportunity for us to be able to say, look, here's what we did in 2 years. If you think that this is a worthwhile endeavor, we will ask to continue it. If we did not do the job that you thought we should do, then we will devolve it. Or if the small business community no longer needs the assistance, we will devolve it. It's a way to try to make sure that we are not creating bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy.
Follow up, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Follow up, please.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I greatly appreciate that ability to look into the future and say, you know what, we're trying something different, and if it's working, we're going to come back to the same body that granted it, and if it's not, we're not going to let it keep on going and be an empty idea. So thank you so much for that clarification, Lieutenant Governor. Really appreciate the thought process that went into it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Members, any additional discussion? Yes, Assemblywoman Dickman, please.
Thank you. I like the idea that we want to be helping small businesses, but I don't like the idea of creating a bureaucracy to help them navigate a bureaucracy. I think we should be dealing with making our government more easier to deal with and understand than creating another bureaucracy. So for that reason, I have to be a no.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Members, any additional discussion? I do see Assemblywoman or Vice Chair Torres raising her hand. Please.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to, thank the bill sponsor, Speaker Frierson, and the Lieutenant Governor for working together on this legislation. And I just want to clarify that, we're not adding an additional level of bureaucracy to this to the assistance for small businesses. Here in Nevada, we're providing them with that resource so that some type of assistance exists, because there is currently no advocacy in place. And so I really appreciate the Lieutenant Governor for working to make sure that small businesses feel that they have an advocate that they can go to when there are issues, because so many small businesses reach out all of the time. They reach out to legislators frequently because they know that, we can help in some ways navigate the process. But I think if we have a place where we can refer them to, I think that, we'll be able to better serve our constituencies respectively. So I really just wanted to express my appreciation to the Speaker and to the Lieutenant Governor for working together to create this office. I look forward to being able to utilize this in my community as small businesses reach out and express their need for assistance.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any additional discussion? I don't believe I see anybody else. With that, Madam Secretary, if you could please do a roll call vote.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black,
No.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
No.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Yes.
Assemblyman Ellison,
No.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Yes.
Assemblyman Matthews,
No.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
No.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes, please let the record reflect we have 8 yeses, 5 noes, motion carries. And if I could please ask Assemblywoman Torres, would you be comfortable carrying that floor statement?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Torres will do the floor statement for Assembly Bill 184. Members, thank you all for the work today and coming in prepared. As the meeting was going, I was given a committee BDR that was put into my hands. And as you know, that we need to introduce it. And I just wanted to reemphasize and remind everybody that when we introduce a BDR, it doesn't mean that you support the bill or in any way are giving a position. By introducing it, all we are doing is ensuring that it gets assigned to a committee, gets a hearing, and then it goes through the regular motions. So at this time, I'd like to introduce BDR 20-1026. Amongst other things, it requires a county clerk to pay certain fees to the county treasurer on or before the 5th day of the month, revises the permissible uses of certain fees collected by the county clerk, and eliminates certain provisions related to the issuance of a marriage license during certain office hours or during other hours by a commercial wedding chapel. I will entertain a motion to introduce BDR 20-1026.
So moved.
So moved. Thomas.
Assemblyman Ellison has made the motion to introduce BDR 20-1026. Do I have a second?
Second. Thomas.
Assemblywoman Thomas has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Black,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Brown May,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Dickman,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Duran,
Yes.
Assemblyman Ellison,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Martinez,
Yes.
Assemblyman Matthews,
Yes.
Assemblyman MacArthur,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Thomas,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Torres,
Yes.
Chair Flores.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, members. Next on the agenda is public comment. At this time, I'd like to invite those of you wishing to join us this morning for public comment to please do so. As always, I'd like to remind you that this is not a time for us to reopen a debate on a previously heard matter. This is a time for you to speak in general matters that fall within the purview of our committee. We encourage you and wish for you to speak. I just don't want to have to cut you off if you're trying to reopen a hearing, as we cannot do that. At this time, we'll go to the phone lines. Anybody wishing to join us, this is the time for you to do so. Broadcast, please.
To take place in the public comment queue, please press *9 now. Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll close out public comment. And I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow, Thursday, March 25th, we'll be hearing Assembly Bill 311, 315, and Assembly Bill 316. Please give yourself an opportunity to review all three bills ahead of time. And I also want to give everybody an idea of how the next couple of weeks are looking. We will be hearing a minimum of 3 bills per day, and at times 4. What that means is we may have to alter some of the start times next week. We'll see. But I just wanted to give everybody a heads up and be prepared, as the weeks that are coming will be pretty long. And there'll be a lot of work expected from all of us to be able to get through that. Thank you for today's meeting, members, and I appreciate all the heads up and the participation. With that, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.